I was elected as the first ever Labour councillor in St Andrews 3 years ago, so that really got me involved at the deep end in politics. Prior to that, I also had a passion for politics, and I also believe that I've got quite a lot of real life experience that I can bring to the job. I'm a qualified town planner, worked in the public and private sector. I've been involved in the development of affordable housing, and I currently work at the University of Dundee as a project manager in the State's Buildings Department, delivering multi-million-pound construction projects. But so the bottom line is that I really would like to do something to help the community that was brought up in. That's my main driving force in terms of wanting to be an MP for the area.
Your predecessor, Sir Ming Campbell, has held North East Fife with a strong majority since 1987. Do you think he's done a good job?
I think for quite a lot of the time, Ming Campbell did a really good job for the area. He's a very well respected MP, or was a very well respected MP. I think one issue that I've got with the Lib Dems, really going back 30 years, is that they've always encouraged people to vote tactically in this area. For about 20 odd years it was vote Lib Dems to keep the Tories out. Probably most notoriously in 2010, I recall getting a leaflet through my door just days before the election, vote Ming, the only way to keep the Tories out, and we all know what happened. You know, a week or so later they got into bed with the Tories and formed a very unpopular coalition. Now we're finding that the Lib Dems in the local area are again encouraging people to vote tactically. They're saying that they're the only people that can keep the SNP out. I think it's really about time that they actually focused on their own policies.
A lot has changed since Sir Ming's 44% in 2010, predominantly in the rise of the SNP at the expense of Labour. Why do you think that is?
I think there's a number of factors that have been at play. Obviously, the huge unpopularity of the coalition government, the Lib Dem Tory coalition. Then, obviously, I think that's probably what led the SNP into North East Fife. They won the Scottish election here in 2011. I think it was a huge protest vote at that stage. A lot of people were very angry with the Lib Dems. A lot of people had put their trust in them, and then they'd just switched over to get into bed with the Tories. So I think there was a bit of a protest vote then. Obviously, since then we've had the SNP had quite a large majority and then pushed forward with the referendum, and that's really changed the whole dynamic of politics in Scotland. And I think what we're seeing now is really just a follow-on from the referendum. It's constitutional issues have tended to dominate things as opposed to other policy areas.
Of course, last year was the referendum, as you mentioned, and it's fair to say that the result there was pretty definite. Do you think that's a closed case now?
I think it should be a closed case. The SNP made it clear at the time in the run-up to the referendum that it was a once-in-a-generation opportunity. I do respect the fact that 45% of the electorate voted for independence. Those people are not going to change their mind, and they're perfectly within their rights to continue campaigning for independence. But the SNP did make it clear that it would be a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and I think we're spending far too much time now talking about it. I think we should be getting on and looking at how we can better run the country in a better way and focus on the policies that really matter to people.
It was a huge turnout for the referendum, but in 2010 only 44% of 18 to 25-year-olds voted. Why do you think that is?
I think back in 2010, politics definitely wasn't as interesting for the younger generation. I think the referendum really fired people up. I think the fact that 16-year-olds were given the vote has played a huge part in that. And now it's just politics has been in the news and the media just constantly. The whole dynamic of it has completely changed.
In Scottish Labour's manifesto, you say you want to give 16 to 17-year-olds the vote. Mm-hmm. But if they're not at 18, why would they be there at 16 in terms of voting? Like if they're not voting at age 18, why would they vote at 16?
So are you suggesting that they're not voting at 18,
right,
so is there any point giving them the vote at 16?
Right, like in reference to the referendum in 2010,
yeah.
The fact that so few 18-year-olds voted, sort of, I mean, obviously we had a referendum now, like Scottish independence, so, but do you think, in light of what happened in 2010, do you think giving the vote to 16-year-olds, will that sort of encourage them to vote.
I think the fact that there's been the referendum, it's engaged a huge amount of people. It was very exciting. It was such a huge, major decision for people in the country to make, and it's definitely been a good thing that's come out of it. That it has engaged so many young people, and I think the fact that not so many of them voted back in 2010, I think that's really irrelevant now. We've seen now that people are engaged, and we've got to keep hold of them and keep them encouraged in politics.
But you don't see a difference between sort of a referendum and a general election in terms of voter turnout?
Yeah, I think that there is a definite difference. The turnout will not be, I'm pretty certain it will not be as high as the referendum, but there is talk of the turnout being still pretty high. I think there was even figures of 80% banded about. I think in North East Fife, 5 years ago, I think turnout was down about 64%, which was still quite good compared to other areas. But I think we are going to get a bigger turnout than we would normally expect for a general election.
So, what can you offer to young voters?
Okay, I think one of the main things, particularly for students, is tuition fees. Obviously, the fees for Scottish students and EU students at the moment are free in Scotland, and Labour would continue that. We were the party that introduced free tuition back in 2000 in Scotland. As for English students, we'd be looking to cut the tuition fees in England from £9,000 to £6,000 a year. And one of the concerns I know of universities is that in Scotland is that they would potentially lose out on that £3,000, but Labour's got a policy of supplementing the loss of the £3,000 per student. So university funding in Scotland is safeguarded as well. A number of other issues I think that affect young people is Labour's policy to tackle 0 hours contracts. A lot of young people are in jobs with 0 hours contracts. Not a good position at all for those young people, and Labour's policy to stop that, or at least stop most of them, would definitely benefit young people. And I think probably the third thing I would point out is Labour's plans to increase the minimum wage and also extend the living wage. An awful lot of young people struggling right at the very bottom of the pay scale at the moment. I think that could make a huge difference to them.
With such a tight race ahead, there's been a lot of speculation regarding collaborations. Would you be prepared to work in a coalition with the SNP?
Well, the Labour leader, Ed Miliband, has made it absolutely clear that there will be no deal, no coalition or no deal with the SNP, so that's my answer on that.
Okay. And Labour doesn't have the strongest record in North East Fife. You've never done better than third. And Ashcroft has you polling at fourth. So what do you think of your chances?
Well, I think if you go back to 2010, yes, we were third in 2010. Ashcroft Pro, well, the polls are pro. I think Lord Ashcroft is a billionaire Tory peer. I think there's lots of question marks over the way that they actually conduct the polls. And certainly when I've been out on the doorsteps, we've been speaking to a lot of people, a lot of particularly former Lib Dem voters are saying that they're going to be turning over to Labour, and there's also an awful lot of undecided voters, and I've been looking to tap into them. I think there's a report in the Independent newspaper yesterday that indicated about a third of voters are still to make up their mind, so we're obviously hoping to tap into that, and we're definitely not here just or I'm not here just to make up the numbers. I think the race is wide open in North East Fife.
Yeah. But in general, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing the UK at the moment and for the sort of next government?
I think there's obviously the need to get the deficit down, but I think a lot of it will depend really on the makeup of the government. You know, is there going to be a clear majority for any one party? I think there could be quite a lot of challenges in the next few weeks ahead, but I think the number one priority, probably as always, is the economy, and getting that on an even keel, getting more and more people into work, but more importantly getting them into good jobs on good pay. Okay,
and finally, how are you approaching your campaign, and sort of are you getting people inspired, and what's your sort of strategy in terms of sort of reaching out to people?
I guess to a large degree it's quite traditional, a lot of door knocking, a lot of street stalls, but I've also been trying to, as much as possible, use social media and getting a lot of feedback through that, using Facebook, Twitter, and meeting people like yourselves, doing all as many interviews as we can. So yeah, that's really the main way we've been tackling it.
Okay, well, good luck.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.